Hello everyone, I am Himadri and you are watching Virtualization with VirtualBox Part 1. For more tutorials, you can visit my website www.brainchamp.net or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/brainchampion. I would also like to request everyone to drop me a mail regarding your comments, suggestions, anything you want to share with me regarding this tutorial at brainchamp.tutor@gmail.com. Thank you. So let's start. In this tutorial we will learn what is virtualization, how virtualization works, why is virtualization useful, some terminology and the hardware requirements for VirtualBox. So what is virtualization? In computing, virtualization refers to the act of creating a virtual rather than actual version of something, including virtual computer hardware platforms, operating systems, storage devices and computer network. So why it is called virtual? To explain this, let's take an example. Suppose you are running Windows 7 on your machine and you installed VirtualBox on that Windows 7, and now you want to install a Linux version on VirtualBox. So this Linux machine or the virtual machine cannot run on its own without the help of VirtualBox and the operating system, that is Windows 7, that is installed on your machine. So this OS, this Linux OS don't have any independent existence without the help of these two things. So this OS is the virtual OS which cannot run on its own using the hardware present in your machine. It can only utilize the hardware and can run only when your operating system, that is here Windows 7, is running and with the help of the hypervisor, that is VirtualBox. So it is called virtual, not actual. Virtualization began in 1960s as a method of logically dividing the system resources provided by mainframe computers between different applications. Since then, the meaning of the term has broadened. There are different types of virtualizations, but we will not go in details in this video. You can check out this link in Wikipedia. You will get a lot of knowledge on reading the article there. So how virtualization works? This is a simple diagram of how virtualization works. Suppose this is the hardware present in your machine. These are all the hardwares such as your hard disks, RAM, etc. And this is the operating system that you have installed on your hardware, for example Windows 7. So here in the blue it is your Windows 7, and now you install the hypervisor, that is VirtualBox, on your operating system, that is on Windows 7. Hypervisor is the manager for virtualization. So here we will install our VirtualBox, and under your hypervisor you can create virtual machine. That is these are all virtual machines: VM1, VM2, VM3 and VM4. So now we have to understand that this virtual machine, with the help of the hypervisor, can access the hardware resources present on your machine, but it cannot access the hardware resources which it don't have the permission. Suppose for VM1 you have assigned a RAM of 1 GB. It cannot extend its RAM more than 1 GB because this virtual machine don't have the permission of RAM more than 1 GB. So this virtual machine will operate within that space of the RAM. So this way the whole process, whole virtualization works. Here are the few points why virtualization is useful. Number one, running multiple operating systems simultaneously. Virtualization allows us to run more than one operating system at a time. This way, you can run software written on one operating system on another without rebooting our machine. Number 2, easier software installations. Software vendors can use virtual machines to ship entire software configurations. For example, installing a complete mail server solution on a real machine can be a tedious task. With virtualization, such a complex setup can be simple. Suppose you have two computers and you want to set up a mail server on both the computers. So to set up mail server on the first computer, you have to install the operating system, then the mail server application, and then you have to configure the mail server. On the second computer, you have to go through the same process to set up the mail server. There is no shortcut that you can copy some files from the first computer and paste it on the second computer and the mail server will be up and running. There is no such shortcut. Here comes the utility of virtualization. Suppose you create a Linux machine on VirtualBox and you have installed the mail server application and configured the mail server, and now we have to create an export appliance, which is a feature which will create the exact copy of the virtual machine into a compressed and packaged into a file. Now we have to copy that file and go to our second machine and import that file. This will create an exact copy of the first VirtualBox in our second machine. So this process helps us to eliminate the time and complexity to set up the mail server on our second machine. Next is the testing and disaster recovery. In the testing phase, if the developer is creating an application for multiple OS, they have to test the application on different platforms, and while in the testing phase, sometimes it occurs that the application crashes or the operating system itself crashes. So if the operating system crashes, then we have to spend a lot of time to make the computer up and running. We have to install the operating system again and then install the application to test. So here also the virtualization is quite helpful. With the use of virtualization, we can create a snapshot. Snapshot is a particular state of a virtual machine which can be saved, so that if any problem occurs, we can revert back to that state. This way, one can freely experiment with a computing environment. And the last point, which is quite important, is the infrastructure consolidation. With the use of virtualization, we can create multiple OS on a single hardware platform, eliminating the hardware and the electricity cost. Next is the terminology. To work with virtualization, we have to understand some terminology. The first one is the host operating system or the host OS. This is the operating system of the physical computer on which virtualization software is installed. Suppose you have a Windows 7 machine running on your hardware. So the Windows 7 is the host operating system where you will be installing VirtualBox. Guest operating system or the guest OS. This is the operating system that is running within the virtual machine. Suppose you want to run Linux on your VirtualBox, so Linux will be the guest operating system and the host operating system will be Windows 7. Next is virtual machine. So what is virtual machine? When we create a VirtualBox, or when we create a virtual machine, we have to assign RAM and the hard disk space and all that to create that virtual machine. This is the customized environment which the hypervisor creates for guest operating system while it is running. Now the guest additions. This refers to special software packages for guest OS which are shipped with hypervisor to add extra features such as sharing clipboard between the host and guest operating system, sharing folders, etc. Snapshot. We already explained what snapshot is. This is the current state of the guest OS which can be captured through hypervisor and save it, so that whenever needed we can revert back to that state of the guest OS. Here are the minimum hardware requirements for installing VirtualBox. Reasonably powerful x86 hardware. Any recent Intel or AMD processor should do. Number 2, memory. Depending on what guest operating system you want to run, you will need at least 512 MB of RAM. But for my suggestion, 2 GB of RAM for better performance, because while creating a guest OS you have to assign some RAM to the guest operating system. With 2 GB of RAM you can run more than one virtual machine along with your host operating system. Next comes the hard disk. While VirtualBox itself is very lean, a typical installation will only need about 30 MB of hard disk space. But to create guest operating system you also have to assign hard disk space to the guest operating system. So more hard disk space is preferable. Conclusion. So to conclude, we have learned what is virtualization and how it works, why virtualization is useful and how it helps us in many ways, some terminology regarding virtualization, and the hardware requirements for installing VirtualBox. In next part of the video we will learn how to install VirtualBox on Ubuntu. So I think this tutorial is quite informative. Thank you. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.